Where is the India-US relationship headed, especially in the midst of the Ukraine crisis? And are we likely to see a trade deal between India and US, which hasn't been spoken about for a very long time in the recent past? To discuss all this, I have with me the former US envoy to India, Ambassador Atul Kashyap. He is now the president of the US IBC. Many thanks, Ambassador Kashyap, for speaking with us. My first question will, of course, be about the Ukraine crisis, considering we are in the midst of it at the moment. How do you see it panning out for the world, considering there are several sanctions that have been imposed on Russia? But do sanctions really matter? Do they give the required results? Or do they ultimately end up only antagonizing the population of the country?
Actions have consequences, Maha, and we all have to deal with them. I've had excellent meetings while I've been here, really excellent discussions with the ministers and the secretaries of the government of India, member companies as well. I think there's a very positive atmosphere between U.S. and India, a lot of optimism about where our relationship can go, the untapped potential in our people-to-people and economic and commercial ties. This is a war that's been thrust upon us, but that intensifies the logic of the U.S. and India working more closely together. I've heard that in Washington, I've heard it in New York, I've heard it in Delhi on this visit, and so I'm going to keep espousing ambition in U.S.-India relations. In uncertain geostrategic times, it's all the more important that democracies work well together as friends with mutual regard and trust.
Is there an understanding, or rather, should I say, a better understanding that the US has of India's position? Because some of the European countries are upset with India's position at the United Nations Security Council with regard to Ukraine. Do you think US understands India's position better, considering we are dealing with a very old ally, Russia, as well in the situation?
Well, the US and India, first of all, have a really unique relationship in world affairs. We are the two great democracies in the East and the West, the anchors of democracy. We have 4.5 to 5 million Indian Americans who are the glue in that relationship and provide the genius and the color and the initiative in the relationship. Our companies are increasingly doing the most sophisticated things in the world and of commerce in the 21st century. The United States is India's #1 export destination. Between our two countries and our two countries' firms, we occupy the top 10 list of the digital economy, which is the goose that lays the golden eggs. Over $100 billion in digital trade between the United States and India every year, and growing like you wouldn't believe. So the challenge for us is to make sure that we can keep growing the aperture of our relationship, get to that 500 billion target, see India become a $5 or $10 trillion economy, make sure these democracies prosper and strengthen. So I'm going to keep at it. Our member companies are deeply invested, and I think Indian companies are doing really well in America. Our companies are doing well in India. We need to make sure governments do the hard work of good regulatory practices, ease of doing business, transparent and stable macroeconomic policy environment, taxation issues, rapid arbitration of disputes through judicial channels. If they do that software of governance, then I think we're going to see a boom between our countries, even more than we already have.
Master Kashyap, but there has been some concern in India because of the possibility of CAATSA sanctions, because India has bought S-400s from Russia. We haven't heard much about that lately, only the Ned Price, the spokesperson of the US State Department, saying that it is not meant to antagonize friends, it is aimed at other countries, for instance, in this case, Russia. How do you see that unfolding? If that sanction does come for a friend like India, will it upset the relationship?
I don't speak for the US government. Let's see what happens. But a couple things. Number one, we are Quad partners. We have a very precious thing between us as Quad partners, and we understand our responsibilities to each other, to our Quad partners, to the broader Indo-Pacific, and to the entire world. We have a very positive shared vision of the peace, happiness, prosperity, good health of the world, and as Quad partners, we'll work toward that. The other thing is, we recognize that India has compulsions That is certainly an aspect that India has to deal with because it has every sovereign right to do so. And that what we need to do is continue building our growth and trajectory of our relations as democratic partners, as Quad partners. So let's see where things go. This is where we are thrust into world events, not of our choosing and not at a time of our choosing. I give the administration full credit for having tried to warn the world of what was coming. This is impacting the lives of people everywhere. Gas prices at the pump in the United States, food prices, it is terribly disruptive. So we have to stick to each other because democracies ultimately must show solidarity. Remember the pandemic. At our time of need, India sent enormous amounts of help. And in your time of need, we sent enormous amounts of help. Our companies, our government. That's what friends do for each other. We've been through all kinds of issues between the U.S. and India over the years. I have a lot of the scars to prove it. We'll get through this. That's what friends do.
Talking about oil and gas, since there are sanctions now on the Russian side, Europe also looking at reducing its dependence on Russian oil and gas. Interestingly, there was a call from the Russian side to India and to our petroleum minister about possibly the options that both countries can explore in that direction. Do you think in the current times, it's a slippery slope for India to engage more with Russia in that aspect, even though India's energy needs are very high?
India will make its own decisions. I personally believe that the United States is a trusted partner. Whenever there has been a time of need, and I don't want to talk about this publicly, whenever I mentioned this to the House Foreign Affairs Committee, whenever there has been a time of need in the last few years, the U.S. has always delivered for India. And when we have had needs, India has always delivered for the United States. We have to consider that trust and that mutual regard. We have to consider the people-to-people partnership between our countries, the vast economic and trade linkages between our countries, the high-tech convergence that is happening between the American and Indian people. This is a partnership that is going to be the most important partnership of the 21st century. It is going to transform the world in positive ways. And so India will make its own decisions, but I have utter faith that the American people believe in India, respect India's rise, appreciate it, want to help with it, and in turn view that that's good for America and it's good for India.
But then why don't we have a trade deal? It's not even being spoken about now. India is exploring options with Canada, UK, Australia, wrapped up one deal with the UAE. Why not America?
Well, those are all friends of ours. And the Trade Policy Forum meeting in November went really well. And I had a great meeting with Minister Piyush Goyal and very positive vibrations. Look, I believe in setting ambitious targets. And we'll see what the governments can do, but there's real politics in both of our countries. Yours is a pluralistic democracy, as is ours. But if we set big targets, then we should work toward them. And I think if we work toward them and realize them, it'll be great for our countries. So visualize, visualize, realize. That's the work of the hour. And that's why I joined this organization, United States-India Business Council, because I think that's where the unrealized potential is in U.S.-India relations, and I want to put my energy toward it.
Can you spell out some of the hurdles from the American side as far as a trade deal is concerned?
Well, I'm not a trade negotiator. I was U.S. envoy for APEC, but not a trade negotiator. So there are issues. I mean, in any commercial and trade relationship as big and varied as ours, there will be issues. I like to think, and I hear it from Indian companies in America, that in America we are very, very aggressive in courting investment, in bringing in outside investment to create jobs. We believe in ease of doing business. We believe in level playing field. We believe in quick arbitration of disputes through our judicial system, contractual things. We believe in good, transparent regulatory practice, consistency, so that an investor from India can come and say, I want to put money in and do this thing, and it'll be good for my company and shareholders and employees. And then in our country, it's not just the federal government, it's the states as well. They compete for that business, so they're very keen on ensuring that they create an enabling environment. And America has boomed. We have a $22 trillion economy. It's growing. Employment is booming right now after the pandemic, and as we near the end of the pandemic. India can do that. It can be just as competitive as Japan, Korea, Vietnam, America, Mexico. but it just requires the soft touch of the sort of software of trade. So I think if we work through that, it's going to be a great future. I apologize, Maha. I've got to run because I've got to get to a meeting.
Sure.
But
Pleasure
it's
talking
great
to you.
talking to you,
Pleasure talking to you,
and
yes.
delighted to see you, and hopefully see you on another visit.
Absolutely. Many thanks for speaking
Thank
with
you
us.
kindly.